Happy Wednesday, everyone. So I wanted to come on here to share with you what I do to implement healthy habits and really show up for myself on a daily basis. And habits are one of those things, it literally will make or break you. Whatever you do consistently on a daily basis will define your future. So it's those little things that are easy to do, but also easy not to do. So I wanted to share what I do because it's really important for me to implement healthy habits for myself and with a busy lifestyle. And that's really the big thing, is to how can I implement this where it's not consuming a lot of my time, it doesn't feel like a super effort because I have other things that I need to take care of, but yet it needs to be consistent and realistic in how I do this. So there's three things that I wanted to share with you, and a lot of what I'm going to share with you has come from this book. So if you haven't read this book, it's definitely a great read. I'll put the link in the comments so you can get it for yourself, but I would definitely recommend this book. It's been such an eye-opener, especially for implementing habits, which can be really a tough thing for many people, myself included. There's been many times that I would start something and then have a hard time kind of getting it to stick consistently. But I've revamped everything in my life and find that it's much, much easier to do it now. So the first suggestion I would make, and what I do, is I recognize the power of compounding habits. So a lot of times if we're going to implement something, we think, okay, we need to do make a big change. So whether it's like exercise and we're going to implement like 30 minutes a day, okay, that can sound really great for the first few weeks, but eventually it may be easy to kind of fall off because it's a huge change, even just to add a half hour or something into your day. People are crunched for time. So what I would recommend doing, and what I do myself, is start out so small that it's hard to say no. And for me, one habit that I implemented is reading. Reading was never one of my things. Years ago, I'm like, I don't have time to read. I don't want to read. I had done so much for school. I was kind of sick of it. But I understand the value of reading, and that was something I really wanted to start getting back into. So I literally started with, let me just read 2 pages a day. I mean, anyone can have time just to read 2 pages a day. It's so easy, you can't say no. And then eventually I was reading 3, and then 4, and then 5, and you build on that. So there's so much power in compounding habits. Start out so small that you can't say no, and then build on that. And you'll see that if you do that for a month or 2 months or 3 months, you're up to the point where maybe you wanted to be when you started, but now it's integrated in your life that it seems weird if you don't do it at that point. Versus when we start so big, it's such a daunting thing sometimes when we say, I'm going to exercise for a half hour a day. But for some people, a half hour a day is really tough to find that time. And so when we start out really small and it becomes integrated into our lives, it's hard to say no to that at that point because it becomes part of us. So do it where it is easy. Start out easy, that it's so easy you can't say no. And that's what I did. So now I'm reading consistently. I read a lot. I love reading. I actually enjoy it and look forward to it, versus when I was, a few years ago, I'm like, oh, it's just another thing I got to add onto my schedule, and I don't have time for this. And now I truly enjoy it. So that's number one. Second one is habit stacking. So if you have some habits that you want to implement, adding them where you're doing them at the same time can really be beneficial. So for me, I start my day out with journaling, breath work, and a cold shower. So you can imagine that might take some time in your day when you're doing that on top of everything else you need to do. So for me, I have a 3-year-old and I have a 3-month-old. And it's hard. The mornings are tough. There's always something that you need to be doing. And so for me, like, trying to get my habits in and take care of my children is really tough. So I stack my habits. When I take the cold shower, I also do breath work, which those in combination are really good for building stress resilience and improving your nervous system regulation abilities. So I stack those together. So that's 2 things. I also do breath work while I'm breastfeeding. So that's also another thing that I can do where I'm taking care of my child, but also taking care of myself. So there's things that we can add and stack so it doesn't have to be like, okay, now I do cold shower, now I journal, now I do breath work, now I exercise. You can combine habits. And again, that's a really great way to serve your time and implement things. So again, that's another thing I do. And then my focus is consistency over perfection. And this was a really big transition for me. I've always been a perfectionist. I am very critical of myself and very demanding of myself. And if I were to stop for a day, I would really get down on myself and almost be like self-sabotaging. So this was a big mindset shift for me that I don't have to be perfect about implementing habits. If there's a day that goes by that I'm not implementing the habit and then I go back in and join it again the next day, then that's just as good. So when you focus on consistency versus perfection, you are giving yourself some grace to not be perfect. And that's real. I mean, there's going to be days when you wake up and things are just a disaster and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And that's okay. That's real life. That happens. But when you are focusing on the consistency, you're not going to get down on yourself that, oh my gosh, I've gone 20 days straight and now I missed a day. Now forget it. It's a big fail. It's not a fail. Just stay with it, be consistent. And one thing I do is that I mark it on the calendar. So when I work out, that's a thing that I enjoy doing and I do it for my own health. I put a check mark on the calendar. So I know it's a visual cue for me. Okay, I did 4 days. I missed a day. Okay, I missed a day. That's fine. Let me just not miss 2 in a row. And then that, again, that's a visual thing for me to just keep myself on track. So again, those are things I do to implement habits. And again, a lot of it is coming from this book. I would highly recommend it, especially if you're trying to make a new habit in the new year. Really, that's a big time for people to have New Year's resolutions, and it's a great thing to make those changes, but make sure that you do it to a point where you're not going to fall off the wagon a month later. Make sure that you do it so that you can stay consistent and a year from now be like, wow, I'm so glad that I stuck with that. So again, 3 things that I do to keep habits consistent and keep them long lasting and that they stick are to concentrate on compounding habits, the power of compounding habits. So making habits so small and so easy that I can't say no, and then building from there. The second one is the habit stacking. So doing things at the same time. So like I said, breath work while I journal, or breath work while I take a cold shower, or breath work while I'm taking care of my 3-month-old. Whatever it is, bring them together and stack them so that way you don't feel like you're taking big chunks out of your day. And then again, focusing on consistency versus perfection. So again, recognizing life will get in the way, and that is okay. As long as you're consistent and you're not missing weeks or days after days of doing what you're doing to show up for yourself, that's the big thing. It's not that you have to never miss a day. It's just recognizing that life will come up, but as long as you can get right back into the habits that you want to implement, that's the big thing. So again, I hope this serves you for today. I hope it helps you think a little bit differently and give yourself some grace if you're trying to implement something, especially in the new year. And like I said, I would highly recommend getting this book. It really has been such an eye-opener. I love all the messages it has in it. It's a super quick read, and I will put the link below. It's actually on sale right now, so if you're looking for a last minute Christmas gift or just something for yourself to start the new year out on the right foot, I would highly recommend it. So leave any questions, comments, anything that you'd like to know. I'm happy to answer those. And like I said, I'll leave the link for that book in there. So have a great Wednesday. Enjoy your day.